A lot of students and people in general are curious to know who won the war between Iran and the US. Are you also interested? Well, as an international relations scholar, I have an answer for you, but you need to spend a few more minutes with me to work on the context. For most of human history, war had a shape you could draw on a map. Two armies marched towards each other, met on a patch of ground, and one of them stopped moving. War began. Over time, the weapons changed, but the essential grammar of war remained the same: matching force against matching force, in the same place and at the same time. Scholars of military history call this conventional or symmetric warfare, and its logic was almost mathematical. You counted your battalions against the enemy's battalions. You measured your cannons against their cannons. Victory belonged more often than not to whoever had more of both. But through the 20th century, that grammar began to break down, and it has never recovered. The wars of our time do not always have a single battlefield you can point to on a map, nor a clear moment when the shooting starts or stops. They sprawl across multiple fronts simultaneously: kinetic and economic, physical and digital, military and psychological. One of the war literature scholars, a famous one, Mary Kaldor, has observed that modern conflict deliberately blurs the line between soldier and civilian, between war and politics, between a battlefield and a marketplace. The enemy you are fighting may not be standing in front of you, he may be in a basement 3,000 miles away, or embedded in the oil price you pay at the pump, or moving through a financial system you thought was yours alone. Another scholar, Rupert Smith, says that we have moved from war amongst the people. Now the battlefield is everywhere, and that changes everything. So when President Trump says it was a major win for the US, or the Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi claims that Iran was the winner, it should make sense in how the two see the war from their own point of view. We should, we should also keep in mind that today war and victory are more a discourse than an objective fact. With this context in mind, let us take a closer look at the course of this war. The war began on June 22nd of the last year, when a military operation code-named Operation Midnight Hammer was initiated. It was a 37-hour-long US Air Force and Navy strike campaign against Iranian nuclear sites, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. It deployed 125 aircrafts, including B-2 Spirit bombers, F-22 Raptors, and F-35s, and a US submarine equipped with Tomahawk cruise missiles. According to Pentagon's assessment, Iran's nuclear program was set back approximately 2 years. Next year, the US and Israel returned to Iran with a larger plan, the Operation Epic Fury. This operation started on February 28, the largest US military deployment in the Middle East since 2003. Over 13,000 sorties were made by hundreds of fighter jets. Thousands of targets were hit. Iran's air defense networks, ballistic missile production facilities, and IRGC command infrastructure all were systematically targeted. Iranian Air Force was grounded within hours and the Navy was severely damaged. there was hardly any legitimate military target left. The fiscal cost, though enormous, about $36 billion, was sustainable for a superpower for the limited period of the war. So, based on these figures, it is clear that the United States won the conventional symmetric war, but Iran switched to a completely different strategy to survive. And because of that, doubts about American victory began to arise. To understand this, let us invoke a few more theorists. Sun Tzu, the Chinese war master long ago, had first articulated the logic that the weaker side can also win by avoiding the enemy's strength and striking its weakness, a principle that Liddell Hart later formalized as the indirect approach in war. Even Erigene Taft, another scholar, did a grand analysis of 197 asymmetric wars or conflicts and found that weaker actors can also win approximately 30% of the time. Uh, and their win rate rises sharply when they adopt indirect strategies. Another scholar, Andrew Mock, in 1975, argues that it is equally relevant for today that stronger states can lose small wars when the political cost at home rises faster than the military situation or victory on the front lines. On the other hand, Thomas Schelling's coercive bargaining theory predicts that the side with lower resolve, not lower capability, concedes first. Let us also listen to Henry Kissinger, American thinker and statesman, who says a small force wins simply by not losing, while the conventional power loses by failing to win outright. Iran's approach falls within all these three frameworks. Iran's decisive weapon was the Strait of Hormuz, closed on March 4, just 4 days into epic fury. By closing it through drone attacks, ballistic missiles, and small boat harassment, Iran triggered the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Brent crude surged past $120 per barrel. By March 23, the average US gasoline price hit $3.94, which is nearly $1 higher than pre-war, with analysts warning of $4 plus prices imminently. Iran simultaneously ran a cost exchange attrition campaign, with Shahed drones costing only up to $20,000 or so a piece, forced responses from THAAD interceptors and Patriot PSC missiles, each costing about $3 to $10 million. So in the 12-day war of 2025 alone, the US fired 150 interceptors at a replacement cost of $1 to $3 billion. So this is Schelling's coercive diplomacy in its purest form, not planning to defeat the adversary, but raising the cost of continued hostility beyond the value of the political objectives. And we see that on other fronts, Iranian proxy architecture intensified the pressure. Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, and Houthis in Yemen opened additional fronts, forcing the US to manage simultaneous theaters. Trump had planned for a 4-week war, expecting it to end even before that. But he only relied on escalating ultimatums. For example, unconditional surrender was demanded in early March. Deadlines were set for March 21, then 23, then April 7, each passing without Iranian capitulation. The war actually finally ended with a ceasefire negotiated by Pakistan, which was extended from time to time, ultimately resulting in a memorandum of understanding signed at Versailles on June 18, 2026. and its 14 points are quite clear. Iran received immediate U.S. Treasury waivers for crude oil and petroleum product exports, release of frozen assets, a commitment to terminate all sanctions, primary and secondary sanctions, on an agreed schedule, a 300 billion reconstruction and development program, removal of U.S. naval blockade within 30 days. On the other hand, United States also received certain things: the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, a permanent ceasefire, Iran's reaffirmation that it shall not develop nuclear weapons, and the downblending of already enriched uranium. But these are not all. The major win for the US, if there is some, can be seen elsewhere. When President, for example, announced at G7 in France, let the oil flow, it signaled his administration's primary understanding of defending the petrodollar financial system, which was under threat and with which the US maintains its dominance over the Persian Gulf and the global financial system. So, to conclude, this conflict was in fact two simultaneous wars: a direct conventional war by the US, which it won, and an indirect asymmetric war by Iran, in which it survived. The US achieved several of its targets, degrading Iranian navy and air force, destroying much of the military surface infrastructure, reducing missile making capacity, and destroying nuclear sites. Yet the results didn't live up to the maximalist rhetoric which it started in the beginning. For example, asking for a total unconditional surrender, or a regime change, or full denuclearization, or dismantlement of proxy networks completely. Iran also won something in it. Iran secured peace for itself. Araghchi Toft's thesis that we saw about asymmetric outcomes has been confirmed. The weak actor Iran lost many military engagements, yet won the political contest. Mark's prediction that we see also holds. Domestic political costs, energy prices, inflation, and daily expenditure rose faster than the military situation on the front lines. Schelling's logic prevailed as well. The side with higher resolve, not higher capability, can survive. So the lesson is not new. It was written in Vietnam, in Afghanistan, and Iraq before. Overwhelming military power is necessary but not sufficient for strategic success. Against a resolved adversary with asymmetric instruments, the question is never whether you can destroy their army. It is whether the cost of doing so exceeds the political objectives. Nevertheless, the United States has achieved a tactical win, which hardly anyone is talking about. It saved the petrodollar financial system, which guarantees financial dominance over the world. Through the peace deal, it brought Iran effectively back into the system, and destroyed all the plans to replace it with the Chinese yuan or Russian rubles.